right, let's talk a little bit about lighting. Who's responsible for looking at your facility and making sure your light bulbs aren't burnt out? Somebody's got to be doing that. Whether I got some laughs here in Richmond. So obviously, I don't know if it's the building landlord, if you put in a work order process, if you stand on your chair to get on your desk to change it yourself when you need a new light bulb. I got some guilty looks here, so that might be happening. Remember that lighting is a big issue. I know that a lot of facilities do limited lighting for energy conservation, but just remember that if you're going to shut the lights off and you're using a computer, you may need a small task light to help so you don't have some vision impairment. Also, if it's blind corners, if it's dark in a certain area, you may need to keep the lights on. It slips, trips, and falls hazards all over again. When you're using your computer or you're doing a lot of reading, make sure you take frequent eye breaks. And what I mean by that is if you're working for hours on the computer or, an hour, 45 minutes, at least every so often look away from your computer screen. Focus on something, about 5 feet away or whatever. Let your eyes rest and then come back to it. Computer glare is terrible. That'll hurt your eyes just as bad. Remember small, tedious tasks. If you're like me, when I'm doing accident analysis, I have these huge spreadsheets and I'm manually having to go through some of them because I'm trying to really pick out some stuff. And I use 8 font because I can get more on a page. Think about those things. And I notice by the end of the day, if I'm doing data analysis all day, my eyes are tired, they burn, they hurt. Unfortunately, because I'm getting more mature in my work experience, I now have to have some reading glasses. And I do have some bifocals. When I get really tired, I notice I need my glasses more than when I'm not. Remember, it's not just inside, it's outside. So those of you who might be with the water division, going out to work and inspect locations on bright sunny days, whether it's the summertime or the winter, there's the potential that you could get sunburn on your eyes with sun glare. It hurts. It hurts really bad. It feels like sand in your eyes. So we should be thinking about offering shaded personal protective equipment glasses, especially for people that might be out in the field taking samples, doing that type of stuff, working outside for extended periods of time, where they have shaded lenses so their eyeballs aren't getting sunburned. Because it does happen, especially if you're working on like white concrete surfaces. The snow, it all reflects up and can damage your eyes. So think about that, and remember, anytime your vision starts to go, I shouldn't have to tell everybody, but go get an eye exam, because once you lose your sight, that's one of those things you can't get back. All right, lighting is probably the predominant source of slip, trip, and fall hazards. Okay, it's terrible. I see it a lot. People forget about light bulbs in closets. They burn out, nobody replaces them, and you go in there to get whatever supply you need and stumble and fall over the 6 boxes of, whatever somebody else has put in their flyers or whatever. So think about that. Lighting is a big issue. Check for stairwells. If it's your emergency evacuation route, those stairwells have to be lit. You need to look at your emergency exit lights. Those exit signs need to be lit. It can't be that nice Xerox piece of paper up above a door. It needs to be lit or backlit somehow. And make sure that if you're putting an exit sign somewhere, that's really an exit. Sometimes we see it's a doorway that goes into like a locked courtyard or something, and you can't get out if there was a problem. So there are signs that if this door doesn't go to the outside, you need to label it, this is not an exit. So people don't, especially when you have the general public in your area, that if you were to have an evacuation and you're trying to get them out, they don't have to listen to you. They can stay in there. That's their, you have to ask them to leave. If they don't leave, then you need to leave yourself. Don't stay in there and try to be the hero, because then, you may not make it out. All right. A little bit about housekeeping. It's a big source of injuries, and this is where we see most of the slips, trips, and falls happening. Okay, we're going to talk about passageways and making sure they're not blocked, emergency equipment and make sure they're not blocked. And what I mean by emergency equipment is fire extinguishers. Can't have anything blocking them. Emergency eye wash stations. I think most of the eye wash stations that I have seen throughout VDH, except in a couple places, are usually attached to the faucets themselves. I think the only place that I've seen freestanding plumbed eye wash stations are at the medical examiner's offices, in the autopsy suites and in some of those areas. I think everybody else's is probably either the bottled that are attached to the wall or they're attached to the actual faucets themselves. So they can't be obstructed, because if you get something in your eye, we want to be able to flush it out, especially if it's a fluid from a source into a client of ours or something like that. Make sure your sprinkler heads, if your buildings are sprinkled, you want to make sure that your sprinkler heads, there's nothing 18 inches around it, that if that sprinkler head needed to discharge, it would block the flow of water, which then wouldn't put out fire. Debris, you know, that this is going to be hard, especially for patient care areas where you might have members of the public bringing in water, coffee, and they spill it and don't clean it up. But watch for those things. It only takes a nickel to a penny size drop of fluid for somebody to slip and fall. Clutter in the hallways, packing stuff up in the hallways so that, because we don't have any place else to store it. Don't overfill trash cans or waste receptacles. Somebody has to empty that. I don't know if it's contract services or something, but it gets heavy. You know, try not to let it overfill. I know in the clinical setting, your sharps containers, you know, they shouldn't have all the needles sticking out, or, you know, they need to, there's some rules of the trade about not allowing, you know, the last half inch or so to be full, so you can cap off the sharps container, label it, or do whatever you have to do with it, and then dispose of it. Make sure you know what your spill policy is, who to call if there's a spill, or if you're responsible for cleaning it up. Don't just leave it there and think somebody else is going to get it. And train your people on that. Go, if your roof's leaking, go get a trash can and put it under there, and call somebody or stay there so you can get somebody to get it cleaned up so that somebody else doesn't get hurt. It's one thing if it's the employee. Our sole remedy in the Commonwealth of Virginia for employees, if they get injured, is workers' compensation. So we've got some insurance to cover you. What we don't have is enough money on the general liability side if Susie Jones and her 3 kids come in and Susie Jones falls and slips, breaks her neck, and is paralyzed. We don't have enough money to cover all those expenses, plus the paperwork and the hassle, the bad PR, all that other stuff that comes with it. So you got to remember, not just employee exposure, but you also have general public exposure as well that you have to look at from a general liability standpoint. So let's talk a little bit about housekeeping. You think this is an appropriate office work environment? I think this is the storeroom. The question was, don't they have a storeroom? I think this is the storeroom. This is what I like to call hoarding, because we may never, ever get it again, okay? And if you look in the upper left-hand corner of this picture, you will see there's about, I think there was like 30 boxes of different printer inks there. Okay, they're probably dried up and can't even be used anymore, but this individual hoarded them because she might not get them again, okay? There's DVDs there, there's stuff. I don't even know half of what it is, but this is the office she worked in, okay? You talk about slips, trips, and falls exposures. How can she get to anything? How can she be productive? Strain and sprains injury, because she's got that little teeny space. If you look down where the 6 is on the date, there's a little teeny space where she has to shuffle to, sideways probably, and shuffle to get to her chair where she's standing up. Okay? So I don't think that was more than maybe 6 or 8 inches at the most. And she shuffled through there to get to her seat to work. That's just not good. Okay? Yeah. This is the whole office, okay? Just from a little bit different angle so I could get the whole thing in. The filing system under the desk was phenomenal. This individual and I had a meeting of the minds and agreed to disagree that it was his filing system, he knew where everything was, and I would mess it up if we had to move stuff around. The facility director and I saw eye to eye, and this area is now cleaned up. But you can see there's all kinds of hazards. If one of those boxes fell, hit him in the head. I don't know what in the world was in all of it. Not really sure how productive you can be with piles of paper everywhere. Pest harborage, slight fire hazard, you know, and he's got that ergonomic chair too, see it? It's real ergonomic there. So this is the kind of stuff as you go around, if you're responsible for doing any type of inspections, is to look for this kind of stuff. There's a variety of different things. There's probably something living in there, I don't know. Molded food, who knows what was in there. But we see this.
Yeah, Marshall, that chair probably is from Virginia Correctional Enterprises. Has your office or anyone from your office ever had occasion to talk to them about the design of the chairs that they're manufacturing and selling to the Commonwealth?
Yes, we do. We have, and yes. Let me go back in the slides. They are now making a new chair. It's what we call like a Herman Miller is a brand name, but it looks like a Herman Miller chair. They're still expensive. They're probably a couple $100, $300 or so. Right here, this chair, that is made by Department of Correctional Enterprises. You can get it with or without that headrest. And this was actually a VDH employee that we purchased, well, we didn't, the agency purchased for her. We did an ergonomic assessment, and she had one of those nice executive chairs that didn't work for her real well. This did. We were able, I've talked to her a few times since the ergonomic assessment, and she's a lot better. She's also somebody that had like a 1940s old military surplus desk, and we were able to make some accommodations to that and get her so that she's as comfortable as she can be, as well as we were able to mount an articulating keyboard and tray under her desk. We had to remove the pencil drawer, but she's doing a lot better than she was before. So there are things that we can do. A little bit money might be involved, but it does help. But yes, we have talked to them. I also know the quality has gotten a lot better. There's been quality issues, brand new chairs coming in and you sit in it and it falls apart, or the arm falls off, or the back falls off. And so we actually, there's a safety contact in Correctional Enterprises, and when I get that feedback, I usually call him and talk to him and say, hey, I've had an agency, they've ordered some new chairs, we've had this problem, and he usually addresses it with the powers that be. So yeah, we've had some conversations.
Thank you.